I'm fully aware that I don't get paid to write about the Pacers. I don't get paid to talk about the Pacers. But I would consider myself a diehard fan and a lifelong Pacers fan. I'm going to talk about them just a little bit because on Thursday night, man, they did it again. They did it again. Tyrese Halliburton, another clutch shot at the end of a game. He's done it in every single series. He leads the Pacers to a 111-110 win over the Oklahoma City Thunder. Game 1 finals win. And, man, I've got my Pacers gear on today. People that are just listening aren't able to see it. The people who are tuned in can certainly see it. But, man, this has just been a phenomenal run. And the reason I bring this up is just because this is, to me, the Pacers are one of those teams in the state of Indiana where basketball is so huge. It brings fan bases together, right? Like, it almost doesn't matter if you're a Purdue fan, Indiana fan, Notre Dame, Butler, Ball State, Valpo, Evansville, Indiana State, Southern Indiana, IUPUI, doesn't matter, right? I'm sure I left out some names there, but everybody's coming together to support the Pacers on this magical run. It's been awesome. Maybe sometime I'll dive into why I'm such a diehard Pacers fan, because it's more than just sports to me. But we'll save that topic for another day. But they did it again. They did it again. And that's going to kind of segue into what I want to talk about today. There's going to be a few things, but speaking of they did it again, how about he did it again? And the he is Matt Painter. And what he did again was find I don't know that I want to call Luke Ertel a diamond in the rough, because this kid is supremely talented. It was just another case of the fact that he was an under-recruited prospect. This is a kid at Mount Vernon who in 2024, I don't remember exactly where he was ranked, but I think somewhere in the 130s, maybe 137. 3-star prospect. And over the last year, his junior season at Mount Vernon, and now in the Indiana All-Star Week, has just exploded onto the scene. He did it again. Like, this is what Matt Painter and his staff do on the recruiting trail. They found Braden Smith, who was an under-recruited prospect. They brought in C.J. Cox, who had primarily only Ivy League offers. Zach Edey, 3-star recruit. Like, they just keep doing it. And Luke Ertel is just the latest addition. Now, what I want to say before we kind of dive into why I'm going to talk about Luke Ertel here a little bit, I think it's easy to look at a kid's stats at the high school level, look at him play, and say, man, that's the next Braden Smith. Purdue's found their next Braden Smith. And I want to caution people, and this is not a knock against Luke Ertel, not a knock against Braden Smith. It's not a knock against anybody. But Braden Smith is such a special talent that I want people who are following along with this to allow Luke Ertel to be Luke Ertel. I want him to be himself. Don't put those expectations up here. You can expect that he's going to be a really good point guard. But Braden Smith, by his junior season, is a 1,000-point scorer, has 500 career rebounds. Oh, yeah, and by the way, he's already produced all-time leading assist man. He is arguably the best point guard in program history. Probably is the best point guard in program history. So, to me, I don't want to put him up on that pedestal. I don't want to put Luke Ertel or any high school prospect up on that pedestal. I still think this kid is going to be a really good point guard at Purdue. I just want to caution people against putting it up to that standard. It's kind of like saying, we think Daniel Jacobson or Will Berg or whoever it might have been is going to be the next Zach Edey. Like, Zach Edey's a 2-time National Player of the Year. Those don't grow on trees. I know Purdue always has a guy that's north of 7 foot on their roster, but that doesn't always mean that they're going to be a 2-time National Player of the Year or average 25 points and 12 rebounds per game. So yes, what Luke Ertel has done this past year, whether it's been high school, AAU, Indiana All-Star Week, whatever he's done has been really impressive. That's just my only caution for right now. So the reason I'm talking about him and spent a couple minutes here talking about him is because Indiana All-Star Week, he's played 2 games this past week, Sunday and then again Wednesday. My days are kind of running together. It's the summer, right? So hopefully I have those right. But Sunday playing against the Indiana Junior All-Stars against the Kentucky All-Stars, 36 points, 13 assists, 9 rebounds. Almost a triple-double in an all-star game against the best that Kentucky has to offer for his class. Really good stuff. Then on Wednesday, he follows it up at Greenfield Central High School. Another 36-point performance, 9 assists, 4 rebounds. 9 rebounds, 4 assists. Mix that up. 9 rebounds, 4 assists, 36 points. This could, and for those who have watched the games, this kid is just a fierce competitor, a really tough, hard-nosed kid. He's gotten kicked in the head a few times. He's taken some shots. He's had to exit games. He's been able to come back in. And that to me is what sticks out about his game. We can talk. This kid, first of all, is relentless in driving to the basket, getting to the foul line. He shot 15 free throws in that game. In that junior-senior all-star game. By the way, he led the juniors to a win, 117-114 win over the seniors, so that's impressive. He puts his head down, gets to the basket, not afraid of contact, not afraid of the pressure, not afraid of the moment, not intimidated by anybody. And I think that not only is he a skilled player, but that's also how he's going to relate to a lot of Purdue fans. Purdue fans love the grit. They love the toughness. They love the effort. This kid gives you hustle. He's a winner. Again, Matt Painter did it again. So shout out to Luke Ertel, who, led his team to the semi-state. Mount Vernon, I think their final record off the top of my head was 21-6, 21-7, somewhere in there. Get to the semi-state. Just a fantastic season. Carried it over to AAU, where he's been, his highlights have been featured on ESPN Sports Center. Their next up, ESPN Next Up, just a kid that's blowing up right now. And the fact that Purdue was able to get him committed in the 2024 class and he stayed committed, again, Matt Banter did it again, right? This Purdue staff did it again. So obviously Purdue's going to have to continue to recruit, get some commitments out of that 2026 class, because they're going to have a lot of guys leaving. You're going to have Braden Smith leaving, Fletcher Lawyer leaving, Trey Kaufman-Wren, Oscar Clough, Liam Murphy. All those guys are going to be gone, so you're going to have either a big incoming class or you're going to have a big transfer class. My guess is Purdue's going to probably rely heavily on the recruiting aspect of it, the high school recruiting, and then maybe add some pieces through the transfer portal, as Matt Painter does and did this past season. But just again, shout out to Luke Ertel, Purdue commit in the 2026 class. He's having an outstanding Indiana All-Star Week. And if you haven't seen him, there are clips, there are full games out there where you can go watch. This kid he's a special talent. And it's just been really impressive to see what he's been able to do. Some other big news is, and I don't know that this is big, quote unquote, news, but Purdue basketball back to practice this summer. They will get things started on Monday. And this is really the beginning of what most people are going to label a championship journey. This offseason, in the months since they lost to Houston in the Sweet 16, this has been a team that has been surrounded by hype, right? There were some nerves about Braden Smith. Obviously, the rumors were out there. Could he transfer? Could he test the NBA draft waters? Is he coming back? Don't know if there was much validity to some of those, but nonetheless, the rumors existed, and so some fans were a little bit nervous, understandably so, in today's college basketball. And the thing, a lot of people will say those rumors were unfounded, and maybe they were. I don't get involved in the rumor mill aspect of it. I don't think there was a lot of validity to what was being thrown out there, but we live in a world where PJ Haggerty left Memphis. Top player from Memphis is leaving Memphis. Hunter Dickinson a few years ago left Michigan, was a star at Michigan, goes to Kansas, right? And there's plenty of other examples out there. So you just never know. And so I understood, even though I didn't think there was a lot of validity to what was being passed around, I understood some of the nervous energy. That's just kind of the world we live in, not just in college basketball, but college athletics in general today. But there was a lot of hype when you get Braden Smith back, when you get Fletcher Lawyer back, and you get Trey Kaufman-Renn back. Obviously, Trey and Braden are All-American caliber players. Fletcher Lawyer has been a two-time All-Big Ten honorable mention. Then you bring in Oscar Clough, who averaged 17 and 12 and is a really good passer for a big man. He kind of fits that Purdue mold. Maybe not Travion Williams level good, but in that same realm as Zach Edey and Trey Kaufman-Renn, where if they double the post, I'm going to kick it out to you and get an open shot to one of my teammates in the perimeter, and we're going to knock down a three. Get Liam Murphy, who basically fills the void of Cam Heide, probably not quite as athletic as Cam Heide, but in terms of his shooting ability and ability to stretch the defense, I would put him a notch above probably Cam Heide and maybe a little bit of a notch below Mason Gillis, because Mason Gillis brought a specific toughness to him. The concern with Liam Murphy is he's continued to battle injuries. He underwent a shoulder surgery in the offseason. I shouldn't say should, but is hopeful to be, full contact during some of these summer practices. Then you get Omar Meyer, point guard, international, 4-star kid. A lot of excitement about him. You bring in Antoine West, who during the season after he signed, during the college basketball season when he officially signed his letter of intent, Matt Painter said he kind of, and again, this is not me comparing him to one of Purdue's all-time great NCAA tournament players and sharp-shooting guard, but Matt Painter said he has the ability to play make like a Carson Edwards. So that's something else to look forward to. And then obviously you've got Jakari Harris, CJ Cox back. The big one to me, and this is interesting to me, and I'm not saying that people are overlooking Daniel Jacobson, right? Like you kind of need a ladder to look over Daniel Jacobson, right? But I think a lot of people look at Oscar Clough and be like, that's the guy that's going to be the difference. And I don't know that we give enough credit to Daniel Jacobson. What he's going to be able to provide for Purdue on the defensive end in terms of shot blocking and rim protection is simply something they didn't have last season. I think Oscar Clough can also provide some of that just because his size is just an inch below 7 foot, but he's not going to be as effective as Daniel Jacobson. Like, again, we saw him for just one game last season. 13 points, 7 rebounds, 3 blocks, and some of those buckets and those defensive plays came at the end of the game. Like, I know it was I believe it was a 17-point win. I think it was 90-73, something like that, against Texas A&M Corpus Christi. But in your first college game to be able to make that level of impact, impressive stuff, man. And I know we haven't seen a lot, and I know there's still going to be some questions, but he's the guy that can clean up the mess. He's the guy that if Fletcher Lawyer gets beat on a drive or if Jakari Harris gets beat, you got rim protection there. You got somebody to help you out. So it's not the end of the world. They just didn't have that last season. I know we've talked at length about that. So I'm going to be interested. I think there are going to be some interesting aspects to this team. We're not going to get a lot of answers in one practice, right, in June. And hopefully I can provide some updates after that practice on Monday and kind of give you an inside look as to what we see. But I think going into this summer, some of the things I'm interested in, some of the questions is like, what's the battle going to be like between Daniel Jacobson and Oscar Clough? Who's going to be the starting 5? Does Purdue value what Clough brings on the offensive end and his tenacity on the glass? Do they feel like they're going to need Daniel Jacobson's rim protection and the ability to throw down some of those lobs? Like Matt Painter talked about that. Not only is he a good rim protector, but he can also throw down some lobs. Where does Omar Meyer fit in here? Is he going to be strictly a backup point guard? Can he play the 1 and 2? Can they move him over to the 3 a little bit? I would suspect he's going to be in that 1-2 mix, coming in for Braden Smith and Fletcher Lawyer. Who's Is CJ Cox or Jakari Harris going to be at the starting rotation? Jakari, to me, is a player I'm going to keep my eye on. I think CJ Cox is an incredibly talented kid. We saw him come in last year. Both those kids are incredibly talented, right? Like anything I say, don't look at it as a negative towards the other player. CJ Cox is a really good shooter, really good defender. I think the sky's the limit for that kid. In terms of what Jakari can bring, though, I think that he's a little bit better in terms of has a better ceiling for putting the ball in the deck and getting to the basket. That's my opinion. I think CJ showed that ability a little bit late in the season last year, so maybe that's something he's worked on, his ability to drive around defenders, get to the basket, and finish through contact. I think Jakari Harris, that can be his I don't want to say overarching, but it can be the thing he brings that Purdue lacks. Because remember last year, a lot of the times you thought Miles Colvin and Camden Heide could potentially be the guys that I'm going to get a shot fake from the three-point line, dribble around you, get to the basket, and either I'm going to get fouled, I'm going to get a basket, or I'm going to get an and one. And they just didn't have that. I think Jakari can be that guy, and that's what Purdue has lacked at times. I think if he adds that element, I think he's the most likely candidate to add that element. Watch out. He could be in the starting rotation. And it's just going to be an interesting – it's going to be an interesting summer. It's going to be an interesting fall. I'm also really curious. I have not mentioned this kid either. Jack Benner is a kid who obviously redshirted last season, but a kid that I think obviously Purdue really likes. I think he's sneaky athletic. I think he's got a good shot. I don't know what he'll bring on the defensive end. I'm curious to see what he's going to be able to do on the defensive end. I'm curious to see if he carves out a role for himself as a redshirt freshman this year. What is he going to provide offensively? Like, there are just – I don't want to say there are a ton of questions because I think there are a lot of knowns, right? We know what Braden Smith and Trey Kaufman-Renn offer. We know what Fletcher Lawyer offers. We know what CJ Cox can do, and we believe we know what Daniel Jacobson can do. We have a pretty good idea of what Oscar Clough and Liam Murphy can do, but I think there's still some questions because Oscar Clough did it at South Dakota State. And obviously, he had some experience from Washington State, but he didn't have the same numbers, didn't put up the same sort of numbers at Washington State as he did at South Dakota State. Liam Murphy goes from Columbia to North Florida. How are those two guys going to acclimate to the Big Ten and playing big-time opponents every single night? So I think that's a question mark. Omer Meyer, again, kind of same sort of question. How's his skill set going to translate to the college game, playing in the Big Ten, playing some big-time opponents on a nightly basis? And then Antoine West, does he carve out a role? Like, a lot of really interesting questions. And what I'd like you guys, like, again, this is the summer months. We're hungry for content right now, right? And thankfully, we're going to get some because Purdue is about to start summer practice. But if you're listening to this podcast, watching this podcast, please shoot me some of your questions because there's a lot of things I write about. There are a lot of questions I have, and sometimes I don't do the best at articulating them. But if you guys can shoot me your questions, I can look into it. I can ask questions. I can give you my opinions. I'd be happy to do that. And again, as we continue, I always say we, and it's just me right now, right? So as I continue to grow this podcast and as I continue to grow the Purdue Boilermakers on SI site, we'll continue to get more in-depth information and hopefully provide you guys with the content you want and need. So if you got any questions coming up this week as Purdue starts practice, if you have any questions about recruiting or anything, we can go football, women's basketball, volleyball. We're trying to dive into it all here at Purdue Boilermakers on SI. Please shoot it my way. You can shoot me a DM on Twitter at SchuteDustin or X, sorry, Elon. You can hit me up in the comments on YouTube. Shoot me an email, however you want to do it. But it's going to be, I think this summer is going to be an interesting one. And I think here's another overarching question that I think I'm going to close this out with. And then we'll talk a little bit about just a recent offer Purdue had. Obviously, Purdue in the 2023-24 season faced a lot of pressure. There was a lot of hype. There was a lot of excitement about that team. Zach Edey coming back, Braden Smith and Fletcher Lawyer, their sophomore seasons. They bring in Lance Jones from Southern Illinois, Mason Gillis coming off the bench, Trey Kaufman-Renn. Like, that was a team that felt like Final Four bust. Purdue certainly has the experience, the guys who have been there and done that. But now it feels like the pressure is not just to get to a Final Four, it's to win a national championship. This feels like it's probably been Purdue's best shot. So how do you handle that pressure? Now, I think they have the leadership to be able to handle that pressure, right? Like, again, Braden Smith, Trey Kaufman-Renn, Fletcher Lawyer have all been there. I was really impressed with how Jakari Harris and CJ Cox performed in the NCAA tournament as true freshmen. Oscar Clough has been around a while. Liam Murphy's been around a while, not at Purdue, but in college basketball. They're going to provide some leadership. Daniel Jacobson's back. He learned for a year. Jack Benner coming in. Like, I don't know. I think that's going to be an interesting aspect to all of this, is how are you going to handle the pressure when you are picked to win the Big Ten? Braden is probably going to be picked to win Big Ten Player of the Year. Trey Kaufman-Renn's going to be picked, a preseason All-American. Fletcher Lawyer may be a preseason All-Big Ten selection. Just a lot of things to consider, and that's going to amp up the pressure. But really looking forward to it, diving into the summer and seeing how this Purdue team gels together and how they continue to grow. Final thing we'll talk about is recently Purdue extended an offer to another 2028. It's never too early to offer. But at 2028, Xavier Skipworth out of Potomac, Maryland, a kid who is ranked he's a top 15 prospect from ESPN. They just released their top 25 for the 2028 recruiting class. He was number 14 on that list. 6'4", 6'5" combo guard, depending on what website you look for, can probably slide over and play into that 3 position if you need him to. But really skilled kid and is able to use his length. What I have been impressed with, now again, this is 2028. He's averaging in the summer circuit, he's averaging 18 points per game, somewhere around 6 assists, a couple of rebounds per game. What impresses you when you see some of the clips and the highlights is his length. He is very physical, can get to the rim, and not afraid of contact at all. On the defensive end, and I don't know how this will change, as you get up into your junior, senior year, you continue to go through travel ball and AAU and things like that. But one of the things that impresses you is when he is on the defensive end, he can use his length. I think he is very good at just going straight up, preventing guys from getting layups, blocking shots, able to use his length to create steals and just nightmares for opposing players. So obviously he is another kid. A few weeks ago, Purdue offered 7'2" center Dylan Betts in the 2028 class. He is Skipworth becomes the second recent offer for Purdue in the 2028 class. So not a whole lot of information out there on him. There's some highlights out there. Again, he's playing some summer ball right now, but that's another name to keep an eye on here in the coming weeks. If he's ranked 14 by ESPN, he's probably a 5-star caliber player right now, probably be in the 4 or 5-star category from 24/7 Sports and On3 and all those other recruiting websites. So just a player to keep an eye out on as Purdue continues to extend offers and continue down this recruiting trail in the summer months. So that's all I've got for you today. Thank you so much for tuning into another edition of the Boiler Banter podcast, and be sure to check out all the content on Purdue Boilermakers on SI.com. Thanks again, everybody, and we'll talk to you soon.